The sun rose over Manila with a golden haze, painting the city in a soft light that seemed almost symbolic of new beginnings. For the Ukrainian women's tennis team, this was more than a competition. It was a journey that began thousands of kilometers away, in a country grappling with challenges yet brimming with resilience. As they arrived at the venue, the warm humidity of the Philippines wrapped around them, a stark contrast to the cold, crisp air of Kiev they had left behind. The team, composed of young women in their early 20s, each carried a quiet determination in their eyes. Tennis had always been a sport of discipline and strategy, but this trip represented something larger, a chance to showcase skill, culture, and humanity in the midst of fierce rivalry. Across the court, the Russian team warmed up, their presence commanding yet composed. Known for their aggressive style and unwavering focus, the Russians were formidable opponents. Yet today, both teams were united by something greater than national pride. They were here in the Philippines, a country where people smiled easily, offered hospitality without question, and valued connection as much as victory. The Ukrainian captain, with her blonde hair pulled into a tight ponytail, observed the Russians with quiet admiration, recognizing in them the same discipline and dedication she had seen in her own team. Despite the political tensions and the media's portrayal of rivalry, there was an unspoken respect. Tennis, after all, demanded it. The first day of practice was unusual. The court, surrounded by lush tropical trees and the distant hum of traffic, felt like an oasis. The Ukrainians were immediately struck by the way local fans gathered around, curious but encouraging. Children waved, some holding improvised banners, while local coaches offered tips and insights, bridging the gap between nations with gestures and smiles. The team's coach, a stern yet compassionate man, reminded them that this trip was about more than winning matches. It was about growth, learning, and embracing the culture around them. It was the first lesson. Humility could coexist with ambition. The days leading up to the match were filled with intense training, laughter, and subtle cultural exchanges. The Ukrainians, initially hesitant, were soon absorbed by the vibrant life surrounding them. They explored local markets, tasting sweet mangoes and fresh buko juice, laughing at their initial inability to pronounce the names of dishes correctly. In the evenings, the team gathered to discuss strategy, but often the conversation drifted to stories of the people they met. A local vendor had insisted on giving them extra mangosteens for free, saying it was a gift for the athletes who bring joy. Such gestures, small yet profound, left lasting impressions on the team. The Russian players, equally intrigued by the surroundings, participated in these experiences as well. Despite the rivalry, there was a mutual sense of wonder at the generosity and warmth of the Filipino people. On the eve of the first match, the stadium buzzed with anticipation. Spectators filled the stands, a mix of locals, expats, and curious onlookers drawn by the novelty of the event. The Ukrainians practiced their serves, the rhythmic sound of ball against racket echoing across the court. The captain gathered her teammates, reminding them that every point counted, but the experience itself was priceless. She spoke of the smiles of children who had watched them practice, the friendly coaches who offered advice, and the unexpected friendships forming across team lines. There was a collective sense of purpose. They were ambassadors of sport, of culture, and of human connection. The first match began with intensity. The Russians served with power, their strokes sharp and precise. The Ukrainians responded with agility, anticipating shots with a mixture of training and intuition. Spectators cheered for every point, the energy infectious, transforming the stadium into a space where politics and tension melted away in favor of admiration for pure skill. In the stands, local fans held signs with encouraging phrases in both Tagalog and English. Go Ukraine! Sports unites! Salamat for the inspiration! The Ukrainian players, feeling the warmth and support, found an extra burst of motivation. Each serve, volley, and smash became more than a move. It became a statement of resilience, pride, and respect. During breaks, the players exchanged gestures of camaraderie. A Ukrainian player offered her water bottle to a Russian opponent, who responded with a nod and a small smile. It was a subtle reminder that despite the fierce competition, empathy and humanity remained paramount. The local media captured these moments, highlighting them as examples of sportsmanship transcending borders. Fans tweeted, shared, and posted about the unexpected warmth, framing the tournament not just as a competition, but as a celebration of connection. Off the court, the Ukrainian team explored nearby neighborhoods. They were invited to a small Filipino home where the family insisted on cooking for them. The team tasted adobo and sinigang for the first time, giggling at the unfamiliar flavors yet savoring each bite. The children asked questions in broken English, eager to learn about Ukraine. One young girl, fascinated by a team member's blonde hair, asked if she could braid it. Laughter filled the room, bridging cultures in an organic, heartwarming way. The Russians, similarly, were welcomed into local homes, sharing their stories and forming bonds that went beyond nationality. These cultural exchanges, informal yet profound, created an environment where rivalry was softened by empathy and shared human experience. Back at the hotel, the team reflected on their experiences. They realized that the Philippines was more than just a venue, it was a living classroom. Each encounter, whether with a local vendor, a child, or a fellow athlete, offered lessons in patience, kindness, and the subtle power of connection. The Ukrainian captain, usually reserved and analytical, expressed gratitude for the way her teammates had embraced every moment. The Russians, too, acknowledged that this tournament was unlike any other, reshaping their understanding of what it meant to compete internationally. As the first day ended, the stadium lights dimmed and the players retreated to their rooms, exhausted but fulfilled. They had played with precision, faced formidable opponents, and yet had discovered something unexpected, a shared humanity that transcended flags, politics, and expectations. The Ukrainian women lay awake, thinking of the smiles they had seen, the hands they had shaken, and the warmth that had permeated every interaction. They were athletes, yes, but they were also travelers, learners, and witnesses to the extraordinary ways in which kindness could transform a competition into a life-changing experience. The first victory was celebrated not with champagne or fanfare, but with quiet satisfaction. Each player knew that the real win was the connections forged, the lessons learned, and the joy discovered in unexpected places. The Russian team, gracious in both triumph and defeat, joined in acknowledging this sentiment. Together, both teams had experienced something greater than tennis, a cultural awakening that would linger long after the final point had been played. In the coming days, the intensity would increase. Matches would become tougher, strategies more complex, and the stakes higher. But the foundation laid during these initial moments of respect, humor, curiosity, and openness would guide the teams through every challenge. The Ukrainian women had not only brought their skills to the court but also their hearts, ready to embrace every lesson, every laugh, and every unexpected friendship. By the end of the week, the city had noticed. Local journalists wrote stories not about scores alone, but about how a Ukrainian tennis team and a Russian tennis team had come to the Philippines and discovered what true sportsmanship looked like. Social media buzzed with clips of humorous mistakes, friendly exchanges, and moments of pure joy. Children imitated serves, neighbors discussed techniques, and families shared meals inspired by the athletes' visits. The tournament had become more than a series of matches. It had become a bridge between cultures, a testament to the power of sport to unite even those who might seem most divided. And as the sun set over the city, painting the skyline in hues of orange and pink, the Ukrainian women walked along the quiet streets, reflecting on how far they had traveled, not just in distance, but in understanding. The competition was important, yes, but the friendships, laughter, and heartwarming experiences were invaluable. They had come to the Philippines expecting a tournament and found a life lesson. That connection, empathy, and joy were as vital to victory as any swing of a racket or ace of a serve. The morning sun rose lazily over Cebu, casting a golden glow across the tennis courts where the Ukrainian and Russian teams had gathered once again. The previous days had been intense, yet full of discovery and laughter. Today, the stakes were higher, and the tension in the air was palpable, but so was the growing camaraderie that had begun to weave a subtle thread between the two rival teams. The Ukrainian women, refreshed after a night of exploring the local city, arrived at the stadium carrying not only their rackets and gear, but also a growing curiosity about the culture surrounding them. They had discovered that the Philippines was more than just a backdrop for competition. It was a living, breathing, vibrant environment where small acts of kindness and humor could leave the deepest impact. The Russian team had already begun warming up, their precise movements reflecting years of training. Yet even they seemed lighter in spirit than one might expect from a group so focused on victory. There was laughter when one of the younger Russians attempted to imitate a local dance she had seen the night before. The Ukrainians couldn't help but giggle, teasing their counterparts gently in the universal language of humor. The stadium, though filled with competitive energy, had begun to feel like a shared playground, a place where international rivalry coexisted with mutual admiration. During the first doubles match, the intensity of the competition rose immediately. The Ukrainians moved fluidly across the court, anticipating each Russian shot with a mixture of skill and instinct. The crowd cheered for every point, their excitement infectious. Filipino fans had taken a particular interest in the matches, drawn by the novelty of seeing two-storied nations face off on their soil. Signs in Tagalog and English waved in unison, messages like "Tara na, go Ukraine" and "Salamat sa sportsmanship," reflecting not only support for the athletes, but also a sense of pride in hosting such an event. The energy of the fans elevated every swing, every serve, making the game feel alive in a way that practice alone could never achieve. Between matches, the teams began to share more personal moments. The Ukrainians had started introducing the Russians to Filipino snacks, offering sweet delicacies like mango tarts and leche flan. Laughter erupted when a Russian player attempted to pronounce "halo halo" for the first time, accidentally calling it something entirely different. The Ukrainians, equally amused, guided her gently, making sure the mishap became a moment of bonding rather than embarrassment. These shared experiences began to dissolve tension, turning what had started as a fierce rivalry into a festival of learning, friendship, and cultural exchange. Outside the courts, the Filipino volunteers had arranged a visit to a local barangay, allowing both teams to see the community spirit that defined much of life in the Philippines. Children eagerly demonstrated their homemade sports drills, teaching tennis techniques with enthusiasm far beyond their age. The Ukrainian women were amazed at the creativity and energy, joining in with playful competitiveness, while the Russian team offered gentle coaching. The scene, brimming with laughter and shared effort, highlighted how sport could bridge cultural gaps. For a moment, flags and politics felt irrelevant. What mattered was teamwork, kindness, and the universal language of play. The evening brought a unique surprise. A local festival had coincided with the tournament, and both teams were invited to participate. The streets were alive with music, vibrant costumes, and food stalls that seemed to stretch endlessly. The Ukrainians marveled at the way people danced in the streets, rhythmically moving to beats they had never heard before. One of the Russian players, who had always been reserved, found herself laughing uncontrollably as a group of children insisted she join in a traditional folk dance. The Ukrainians quickly followed, and soon, both teams were dancing together, creating a scene so whimsical and heartwarming that spectators and locals paused to watch in awe. The festival became an impromptu celebration of friendship, bridging divides that had previously seemed insurmountable. Back on the courts, the intensity returned. The Ukrainians were paired against the Russians in a crucial mixed doubles match, with the crowd hanging on every serve. The game was a display of skill, patience, and strategy. Each volley, each powerful swing was met with cheers and occasional playful banter between players. The crowd, sensing the friendly rivalry, often erupted in laughter at humorous mistakes or exaggerated expressions of frustration. These small human moments reminded everyone present that even at the highest levels of competition, personality and heart mattered just as much as skill. During one particularly heated rally, a Filipino ball boy accidentally rolled the ball into a group of spectators, prompting both teams to stop and laugh. The incident broke the tension, and the players took a brief break to share jokes about their misadventures on and off the court. The Ukrainians marveled at the Filipinos' ability to find humor in every situation, a trait that seemed to ease stress and foster connection. Even the Russian team, known for their stoic demeanor, joined in the laughter, their smiles genuine and infectious. The cultural exchange extended beyond humor. During breaks, local coaches began sharing insights into training techniques, diet and exercise routines, blending Filipino traditions with international standards. The Ukrainians were particularly fascinated by the focus on mental resilience, a principle deeply embedded in Filipino sports culture. "It's not just the body," one coach explained. It's the mind and the heart that win games. This approach resonated deeply with the Ukrainian players, many of whom had relied heavily on strict training regimens. The lesson was clear: combining discipline with empathy and connection could enhance both performance and personal growth. The hospitality of the local community continued to amaze the athletes. Families invited them into their homes, offering meals, teaching them local customs, and sharing stories of life in the Philippines. One evening, a Filipino grandmother demonstrated traditional cooking techniques for sinigang, explaining the delicate balance of flavors while sharing anecdotes from her youth. The Ukrainians listened attentively, occasionally laughing at their own clumsy attempts to follow instructions. The Russians participated as well, their curiosity bridging cultural gaps and creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and admiration. These intimate moments left a lasting impression on the athletes, reinforcing the idea that sport and culture were inseparable in this experience. As the tournament progressed, friendships between the teams deepened. Shared meals, playful competitions, and late-night conversations revealed vulnerabilities, hopes, and personal dreams. The Ukrainian captain confided in a Russian teammate about her ambitions, fears, and the challenges of representing her country on an international stage. The Russian player, in turn, shared her journey, the sacrifices made for sport, and the emotional weight of expectations. These exchanges, honest and heartfelt, fostered trust and empathy, proving that even in competition, humanity could prevail over rivalry. One of the funniest incidents occurred when both teams were challenged to a local Filipino game involving a makeshift ball and bamboo poles. The Ukrainians, unfamiliar with the rules, stumbled repeatedly, while the Russians attempted to apply their tactical mindset to the chaotic play. Laughter erupted with each failed attempt, drawing the attention of local spectators who cheered wildly. The chaos, while humorous, became a metaphor for the journey both teams were on, navigating unfamiliar territory, making mistakes, and learning to embrace the unexpected. The final matches of the day showcased incredible skill and strategy. The Ukrainians, inspired by the warmth of the fans and the lessons learned from the Russians, played with precision and creativity. The Russians, equally motivated, countered with agility and calculated risks. The rallies were long, intense, and thrilling, yet the underlying tone was one of mutual respect and shared purpose. Each point scored, each clever play executed, was met with applause not only for the skill, but for the spirit in which the game was played. After the final match, both teams gathered at center court for the award ceremony. Medals were distributed, photographs were taken, and local officials delivered speeches celebrating the athletes' dedication, skill, and sportsmanship. Yet the real celebration was not of trophies, but of connections forged. The Ukrainian and Russian women shook hands, hugged, and shared heartfelt words of appreciation. For spectators, the event had transformed from a competitive tournament into a narrative of unity, humor, and cultural immersion. As night fell over the city, the athletes reflected on the day's experiences. They had faced intense matches, navigated unfamiliar customs, and laughed until their sides hurt. They had been guests in a culture so rich in warmth and hospitality that it had changed their perceptions of competition, teamwork, and even life itself. The Ukrainian captain, sitting quietly under a starlit sky, thought of the local children who had watched them play, the families who had welcomed them into their homes, and the friendships that had blossomed across team lines. She realized that the Philippines had given them more than a tournament. It had given them a lens through which to see the world differently. The Russian team, too, felt the transformation. They had arrived focused solely on winning, yet left with a deeper appreciation for humility, humor, and human connection. The lines of rivalry had softened, replaced by laughter, mutual respect, and the shared experience of a country that had opened its heart to them both. Social media buzzed with clips of funny moments, heartwarming gestures, and incredible rallies, capturing the essence of a tournament that had evolved into something far greater than sport. In the quiet moments before sleep, both teams understood that the lessons of the Philippines would travel with them long after they returned home. Discipline, strategy, and competition mattered, but kindness, laughter, and empathy were equally vital. The Ukrainian women had grown not just as athletes, but as individuals, embracing a culture that taught them the value of connection in the midst of competition. The Russian women had discovered joy in unexpected places, learning to laugh, to engage, and to appreciate the depth of a people's hospitality. By the end of the week, the tournament had done more than crown champions. It had created a tapestry of experiences, relationships, and life lessons. Children waved goodbye with homemade banners, families hugged them tightly, and local coaches praised their growth both on and off the court. The Ukrainians and Russians had come to the Philippines to compete, but they were leaving with memories that would forever define their understanding of sport, friendship, and humanity. And as the teams packed their bags for the journey home, the Filipino sun setting behind them, laughter and stories filled the air. The tournament had ended, but its impact was far from over. Across courts, classrooms, and communities, lessons of humility, humor, and heartwarming connection had been learned. The Ukrainian women, the Russian women, and the people of the Philippines had woven together a story that transcended flags, politics, and expectations. A story of sport, culture, and the enduring power of human kindness.